It's the way to go. What'd you get? A quesarito?
Someone there.
No, you got a quesadilla.
Okay. So Austin, there's chair over there.
Is this for?
And then stop it when you go, and then I'll record again. You don't need to record.
Oh, stop when the
As soon as you're done, stop and then bring.
and role play, right? And role play.
Yeah. For video sake,
Sure.
just so we can like have someone can just watch that and just teach you.
Yes, that works.
We
Okay,
do a couple like live scenarios that teaches, but
got it. You got it. All right, cool. So everybody has a document now, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, so unresponsive. All right, you have a document, right? Yeah. Okay. I guess you have food in your mouth, but chilling. All right, cool. So we're gonna go over second manning. So what exactly is second manning, and why is second manning important? I need to realize that there's a video here and nobody can see my phone over there. Okay, cool. So second manning is basically when you're literally the second man for a function. So training, interview, whatever function is being run, there could always be a second man, somebody that's helping support the function. And really, the second manner's job is to do just one main thing really for interviews is really just help the environment. So make sure that the environment is feeling good, that it's professional, but it's also seems like it's a lot of fun. When people come in for interviews, you have to think about what is their first reaction when they walk into the office, right? When people think about when you first came to your interview, right? What did you think when you first walked in? At least for me, I was like, first of all, why are there swords everywhere, right? What are other things you thought when you first walked in?
There's a broken picture frame that I noticed.
Okay, why is there a broken picture frame? Okay,
Why is there
why are there so many people? What else? What other things people are thinking?
Why is there a hamster in my face?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, almost fast.
Oh, okay. That's very like office specific. There's a hamster there. Okay, that's random but cool. But typically, vector offices aren't like in like the class A building, so it's like, why is this building so sketchy? At least where I first interviewed, some of you are laughing. Our elevator in the Miami office would like shake every time you rode it. So the first time I went to an interview, I was like, I'm gonna die. And if you've been to the current West Houston office, it's kind of funny because that elevator is super sketchy too. So it makes me feel right at home, which is what I love. So, you have to think about when you're the second man, these people are coming to a professional interview in your office. And sometimes there's different things in your office environment that you can't really control, like the quality of your building or the quality of the office and the inside, like, the carpet or the way the building looks. You're not going to go and remodel your whole entire office building just to get more recruits. But something you can do that's easy is making sure that things are organized, right? Like in our office, it's pretty tight space when you first walk in because we have 3 receptionist stations and it's not that big of an area. So if like there's only a couple papers out of place, it looks like a hellhole. It looks awful. So I'm super like, can we just like take a second and like put the papers, at least stack them up to look nice before an interview comes in, or like if there's a box in the corner, random things like that. Anything that prevents applicants, ebb and flow into the office could really make a big difference. Making sure things are organized. Music is one of the biggest things in an office. I hate coming to the office and it's like silent. The receptionist always laugh because when I come over, I'm like, hey, can we? And they're like, we know. Turn on the music. I'm like, yes, turn it on. Not even just for your applicant's sake, but for the receptionist. Like, that's so boring. Like to sit in a quiet, silent office. Like, I don't know about you guys, but around this time of the year when mailers are dropping, don't you go home sometimes and you still hear the phone ringing in your ear? Like, just, I don't know, maybe you're not in your office often enough. But at least for me, sometimes I'm like, there's a phone, and I'm like in the bathroom. I'm not even like in the office. So, I just want to like drown out the sounds of, no, not gonna take that. So I just want to drown out the sounds of the phones while they're there to make it a more enjoyable process. So make sure that there's music on. Make sure that everything's ready for the interview beforehand as a second manner. So in my office, whoever's running the interview is the person that's in charge of it. In your office, it might be different because there's might be less people coming in, or less people on staff. But at least in my office, there's always so many things to do. So I ask your manager, who needs to be the one in charge of it. In my office, there's so many things to do that the second manager may not always have a chance to set up for the person interviewing. But let's go ahead and walk through this here. So when they first walk in, like I mentioned, environment is one of the most important things. And there's different things you can say for if it's a single person or if they're in a group. Whenever people walk into the office, the thing that most new recruiters do or most new assistant managers do is they'll say, oh, are you here for the interview? What's the interview mean? Like, is it like an event or like something that everybody was signing up to come do, like the interview? So I hate when people say that, they came for an appointment, they came for an interview with a manager one-on-one, not the interview. So it says on here, everybody look at your paper, it says, how can I help you? And they're going to respond with, I'm here for an appointment, or I'm here for an interview, or I'm here to see Miss or Mr. whoever. If it's in a group, just say, do you have an appointment today? Real simple. Sometimes what you'll notice with interviews, you'll have like one person trickle in, and then like 8 people show up at one time. And you're not going to be like, how can I help all of you? So instead, you just say, do you have an appointment today? And everybody will be like, oh yeah, we all have an appointment. Okay, great. I can help you with that. Just so you know what's happening right now, Mr. Whoever is actually just screening through applications. We have a lot of people applying for a semester break work program as well as for year-round positions. But right now she's just getting a feel for who's here. So I'm going to have you sign in, fill out a brief application, and she'll be with you shortly. If things look good, she'd have you back for a formal interview. But right now she's just screening. So one thing that helps applicants feel more comfortable is just when they know the process of what exactly is going to happen. So Sarah, somebody from the Houston Galleria office, told me that she had a girl one time that came in and like refused to like go to the back room, to fill out her application or to the waiting area because I don't know, I don't know if it had to do with any of like the prostitution stuff or like the trafficking, whatever. But and after I taught this to her, comfortable. So just make sure as a second manager, you're not the interviewer, so you don't need to lay down law and bring the hammer down. You need to be the nice person, the open person. If I'm the one running the interview, like for lack of a better word, I'm like the biggest bitch. Shaking their hand and laughing with them, just making them feel comfortable throughout the process. But the biggest thing that makes them feel comfortable is just explaining what exactly it is that's going to happen. So once they have their application, you're going to collect all applications for the person that you're second manning for. That way you can get to know them a little bit better and give your interviewer a heads up on who is in the interview. This helps them connect with people all throughout the group section. It also helps them connect with people in the pre-screen. And the second key there, everybody take a look where it says steps, match likes with likes. This is super important. Whenever you have large groups coming in for an interview, to make the process go along quicker, you want to interview people or pre-screen people 2 at a time. And then sometimes if there's a really big interview, like 20 plus, 30 plus, I've done 4 at a time or 3 at a time. But you always want to match people up that are likes with likes. So people that are like each other. You're not going to put like a random and I'm sorry if one of you came from Craigslist, but like a random Craigslist applicant with like a super sharp PR that came from like your best school. Are you Craigslist? He looked at you like if you were Craigslist. Oh, see, it's not Craigslist. That's different. One is Craigslist and one is Craigslist or Snagajob, whatever. So match likes with likes. So you're not going to put like a super sharp person with like your lower quality applicant, right? So that's why you want to be the one to scan the room, because if you just give your interviewer a stack of applications, they're just going to pick the top 2, pull them back, and it could be somebody that's not the best and somebody that is really good. And it doesn't really make the sharp person feel like they're working towards earning a spot in the interview. Yeah, we're just kind of weeding out who we want to keep, don't want to keep. And they're like, oh, okay, makes sense. That's why you pulled me back with this other sharp person and you met with those people, together. So just make sure you match likes with likes and keep a comfortable energy. If it's a really big interview, I like to have 2 second manners, one person collecting applications and the other person talking to people. Adrian's been there for that. He's seen that where one person's talking and the other person is just feeding me applicants or applications. When you're getting the application, there's certain questions you can ask to make the process go by quicker. And don't walk up to them and say, hey, give me your application. That's like super rude. I've seen people walk up and just be like, oh, give me that, and like, all right, thank you. I'm going to go take that to the manager now. Ask them if they're finished first. So are you all done there? Are you finished? I know it sounds stupid, but you'd be surprised the crazy, stupid things that people do sometimes. So questions to ask them when you grab their application. Number one is, how do you hear about us? How did you hear about us? Now, you don't necessarily ask this question so you can, give that information to the interviewer because they can clearly read an application. What you're using that information for is for connection. Okay, so who recommended you, and promote their friend's success. So for example, if Cameron came in for an interview, which Cameron went to a one-on-one interview with Kathy, so he didn't go through the full interview process. But let's say he was in an interview. This is the way that I would probably come up to Cameron. So, oh, Cameron, are you all done there with your application? All right, cool. Let me go ahead and take a look. Oh, so you heard about us through a friend. Who recommended you? Brandon Bain? Oh, that's awesome. How do you know Brandon? So you went to Strake? Nice, cool. Do you also know Jack Woody by chance? Kind of, you know of him. Sweet. So are you like super involved in everything like Brandon is? No? Oh, okay. Did Brandon tell you how well he's been doing here or not really? No? Yeah, well, just so you know, he's pretty good. I don't really feel comfortable speaking about people's finances, but he made a pretty good check last week. You should definitely talk to him. And are you going – I forgot what college he's going to, but are you going to UT like he is? No, where are you headed? Nice. Well, reason I ask is we're a national college student program. And by the way, this is like the rest of the people in the interview. And I'm quote unquote ignoring them, but they're listening to everything that I'm saying. So he's confirming that somebody's done well here. And I'm speaking loud enough for everybody to hear. It's not like a one-on-one conversation. It's not only to connect with him, but also to give that proof, that social proof that people have been successful here for everybody else in the room. So now the people that have applied with us online or got a letter in the mail that have no idea how the heck they got a letter or, who we are from seeing us online, they feel a lot more comfortable with the job and people's success here because they see the proof through somebody else's friend. Does that make sense? Cool. Perfect. So that's if they were recommended by a friend. If they were from a campus, it's a similar approach. What school do you go to? Awesome. You can talk about people that have gone to that school, talk about an advisor if you know them, or if you know that we're on that campus often, like we have a table or we've done internship programs or workshops there, you can mention those things too so everybody in the room hears it. And again, they're able to hear that we work with colleges, so it makes us more credible. Then ask them for part-time, full-time, summer or year-round. If for summer, are you going away to school? Where to? Again, these are just questions to connect with them. Now, resume. Resume is super important. The way you react to if they have a resume. Done, right? Oh man, I totally messed up. Versus not sharp applicants will make an excuse. They'll say no one told me, right? And then your sharp kids are like, doofus, no one needs to tell you. That's what you do. You go to an interview, you bring a resume. So instead of them those people, by the way, the sharp ones will be like, oh my gosh, miss, I'm so sorry. Face of concern for the sharp kids. Just I always like to do a little all right, I'll let Miss Chang know, okay, and they're just damn it, and they work that much harder to try and impress you, so that you can select them for the position. So if it's a not so sharp person, you don't want to make them feel like crap. So I'm just oh, no worries, it wasn't required, so I don't want to make them feel super bad about it. But the sharp kids, yeah, they should feel bad. So then you ask them, did you have a chance to check out the website? If yes, okay, great. I'm sure it answers some of your questions. Ms. Chang will be going over some more details of the position with you. And if they're no, I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm you just skimmed through it, huh? And they're oh, yeah, I just skimmed through it. And I'm okay, cool. No worries. Ms. Chang will go over the brief description in this first part of the interview. That way they don't ask you the second manner questions. What you want to do is you want to keep working the room so nobody talks about the job to each other. Because let's say Preston had a super went online and saw scam, 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 right? So he's just here checking it out. He's like, oh, whatever. I'm just gonna see, what this is. And then Adrian over here is like, I don't know where I am, but this looks like a cool place. And Preston starts yapping away. Pictures so that you can, and for example, if Preston was that guy that thought everything was a scam sitting in that corner over there, he'd be like the first person I talk to, because I'd rather him talk to me than talk to everybody else in the room. Does that make sense? And as a second manner, you want to be in the room as much as possible, because once you leave the room and you leave the music on, people are really awkward. They don't talk to each other. You know what they do? They go online and they start Googling. All right? And what happens when you Google Vector? I'm sure you all have done this before. It's a lot more cleaned up now, but if you scroll a little bit, you'll see how they're just waiting around, and like the last couple applicants still have to be pre-screened. You can go in and you can do group announcements. I like to do group announcements whenever there's a big group, and it takes me like about a half hour to pre-screen people. This is usually like if there's like 20 plus people. After I pre-screen half of them, I'll walk in as the interviewer, or Kathy does it as my second manner, and she'll come in and say, hey, just so you know what's going on here today is we're just going through a quick pre-screening process. You'll all be meeting with Miss Chang or Miss whoever just to go over your application. If things look good, we'll have you back for a second interview. For right now, you can go ahead and read the information on the front of your application, and we'll be with you shortly. Again, just to repeat the process to make people feel comfortable with everything that's happening. Something that I started saying, which makes them feel comfortable with, the amount of people in the room, is just like, by the way, we are looking to fill positions for all over West Houston, which is why we do have multiple applicants with us here today. And they're like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of people in Houston. Yeah, exactly. So after the applications are collected and they're just sitting around, you can just talk to them. And you just want to make sure that you have good conversation with them, professional conversation. Don't talk about like your weekend or whatever. Maybe talk about just so for the sake of the recording, let's go ahead and talk about training, second manning training. So the first section here got cut off on the bottom is the before training. And then if you flip over, it'll have all the steps. And then afterward, we're going to role play interview, and then we'll different preferences. For example, Kathy, the way she likes things set up is she always tells me, put the chairs out, and I already know in my head she's going to move the chairs because she has OCD like crazy with chairs. So no matter how I set up chairs, no matter how beautiful of a job I think I did, she's always going to come in and mess it up and like do whatever she wants. So I'll just put chairs in straight rows, and I'll just leave it there for her. Another thing I know that she likes is she likes to have hot tea within like the first 5 minutes of training. So I'll get the tea going, in the kitchen. I know she likes to have a sign-in sheet with people's name, number, how they heard about the job, email, and school, so I'll make sure we have a sign in with that there for her. I also know that she likes for us to have a rope and leather cutting station, and she likes for us to have a food cutting station. Some people walk in, they can use the products, especially she likes peelers and she likes choppers, so figure out whatever your trainer's preference is. Kathy also likes EDM music or like pumped up music in the beginning of training. She doesn't like anything chill because she likes to be pumped up too, and she likes that environment in the office. She also likes everybody to wear a name tag, so I make sure I have name tags ready with a dark, bold, she likes for the board to say welcome to training. So as a second manner for training, your job is not only to second man the environment of the people walking in, but to second man how your trainer is actually feeling. Because if your trainer's in a good spot, what happens to training itself? It's good, right? I know if Kathy has a lot of energy, she brings the energy, to training. And you can see the difference night and day from when she's like in a bad mood and in a good mood running. I think she was like in like a pretty good mood like the first day, and she just like ripped through training. Last week she like freaking tore that thing up, and like our kids were like homemaker, signature, complete set, all throughout the weekend because she kept running training with such high energy. So you'll find out, what your manager likes. But just some basic things, or have a rope and leather cutting station. If your office hasn't been doing it, do it. Make sure that they're cutting stuff as they come in. Number one, it kills time, so they're not just sitting there waiting for training to start. Number two, it also gives them a lot of belief. Demos and having a lot of names and numbers to call. So as long as they have a belief, a schedule, and a plan, they're good to go. So the only way they're going to gain belief is by using the product constantly. So if you're not doing a cutting clinic of some sort, you need to have them cut stuff in the beginning. Make them use the product. Also have a sign-in sheet and name tags, music on, and have all materials ready. Stack manuals, laptop. I know Kathy likes to have a Wusthof knife there and a Henkel's knife there and a cutting board, an apple and a spatula because she does like an they needed. So make sure everything's there. Cutting station, the way you man the cutting station is super important. Making sure that you're getting people excited about the product. Like if they're using a trimmer, commenting and saying like, oh my gosh, customers love that knife. It actually comes in your sample set. And every time they use it, they think it's amazing. Because now that representative gets excited about going on their appointment and using that trimmer and watching their customers' excitement. So again, it just helps belief in the product. Use the time to connect and start creating high productivity. So for a very long time, the reason why we're so effective in our office is as people are role playing, as people are even just walking into training, making sure the conversations you're having are helping build productivity for your office. So let's go over the questions that it says on here. So the first one says, who's your number one customer? I always like to ask people that when they're training, like, hey, have you thought about, and that's a great way to start every question while they're in training because they might not have ever thought about is, hey, have you thought about who your number one customer is? And then ask them questions like, why do you think they're your number one customer? Do they like know everybody or do they love to cook? And a lot of your sharp kids will tell you, well, they're really rich, and you can kind of guide them on. And sometimes you have some kids that they're like, oh, who's your number one person? Oh, it's my best friend because he's a chef. And you're like, oh, that's not a good prospect, right? So you can kind of coach them so that later on when they're scheduling their appointments, they don't get super excited about setting their best friend that's a chef for Applebee's. They get excited about setting somebody who's like a Mac customer that owns a home, has a full-time job. So second is, what do you have going on this weekend? Kathy will come up to me in the office, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard her say this yet, but she'll say, Marielou, I need you to go clear weekends. Go clear weekends. What does that mean? That means I walk around the whole training class, and I meet every person, and I say, hey, so do you have anything going on this weekend? Or is there stuff that's flexible or movable? And they'll be like, oh, I've got this, or I've got that, or, oh, I'm completely open. If they say they have something, I'm always like, dude, if I were you, if it's flexible, I'd move it. If I could do my first weekend again, man, I would have done as many appointments as possible. I've had people get their shifts covered. I've had people go to family parties for 2 hours and then go leave and do demos. I've had people move a date that they had or move a friend date that they had to the next week or the next couple days because they want to maximize their first weekend in Cutco. And that's a fact, by the way, is if they maximize their first weekend in Cutco, if you can get them to $1,000 by Monday night, you have them locked in at least for another 2-3 weeks till they hit their next promotion. And then it's your job to get them to all the events in the office. But if they have a good first weekend, it's really hard for them to quit. It really is. If they have a good first weekend, it's really, really, really hard for them to quit Cutco. And so to prevent drop-off and create retention, have them clear that first weekend up. So what do you have going on your first weekend? Next is, what do your first 10 days look like? I kind of reserve that Dill, who I knew from interviewing him was leaving to a June master, I guess is what they have it in college now, where you go to school for a month. I didn't even know that existed. And so he has a June master. So I knew he was only going to be working like for 5 days. And then he left to Galveston with his family. And then he was going to school. So I was like, hey, Peter, what do your first 10 days look like? Have you thought about how much you want to sell? And he's like, oh, I don't really know that I can do that much because I've got this going on and I'm leaving school. And I'm like, what's your first weekend look like? He's like, oh, I don't have anything going on. I was like, dude, I had a kid, Javon sold, 10 grand within 2 weekends in Cutco. I had this person, and just like drop examples of people that have big first weekends. I was like, you could sell 10K this weekend if you wanted. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, how cool would it be if you made $1,000 by Monday night? Or if you made $2,000 by Monday night. And then all I had to do after that was keep his excitement going. His first sale ever was like $200. His first day he sold like $1,000, but that next day he sold $5,000. That next day he sold $2,000. He ended up selling over $7,000 before he left to school. So asking these questions can really help plant seeds in people's heads for how much they can do or think they can do for their fast start later on. Another thing is when you're just walking around, instead of giving them random tips like, oh, make sure you do this in the manual, or, oh, when I do my demo, I do this. There's only 2 things people need to hear when they're in training, which is follow the manual and call the office, okay? Just think as like psychology for representatives. We're telling them all training to follow the manual, right? So why would it make sense for them to follow something that's outside of the manual? Then they feel like you're holding back information from them, or you're not giving them the whole truth. Whenever you say things like, well, something that I do in my demo is, everything that should be coming out of your mouth is, I follow the program. I follow the program. I follow the manual. That way they don't question the manual. Because then later on, then you have those kids that are like, well, let me show you what I do. And I'm like, well, listen, your manual was developed by people that have sold millions of dollars of Cutco. How much have you sold? $200. That's right. So follow this. They know what they're doing. And they're like, oh, you're right, and then they'll follow it. But it's a lot easier when all the assistant managers are speaking the same lingo, which goes perfectly into the next thing, which is how to have the most powerful pop-in. Who knows what a pop-in is? Anybody? That's not Austin. What's a pop-in, Paul?
Like whenever you come in, like your managers run the training, and then you come in and you just tell the class things that your manager asks.
Yeah, has your manager ever seen you walking by and they go, hey, come here real quick, let me introduce you. Show of hands. Has your manager done that to you before? That's a pop-in. It's intentional, okay? It's not like, oh, hey, I want to see how you're doing today. Although your managers do have good hearts and they want to talk to you and they love you, they want to introduce you to people. It's really so that you can pop what we call fear bubbles. People come in training thinking different things. The same way they come into an interview like, is this a scam? What is this place? Why is the elevator weird? Why does it smell musty in the hallway? Whatever it is, right? They come in training with the same thing, with like the fear of God in their eyes for some people. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I don't know who I'll see. I don't know who's going to buy this stuff, right? I don't know if I'd be good at selling Cutco. So they come with all these fear bubbles in their heads. So your managers will ask you certain questions so you can help pop those fear bubbles and make people feel more comfortable. Because if people feel more comfortable, they're going to be more open to the problem. How you can develop sales tips and then recruiting. So everybody in the office, just make sure that you talk to other assistant managers. Make sure that everybody has a different pop-in. There's certain things that I say in my pop-in that none of the other assistant managers hit on, and it's like that on purpose because I want to make sure all the fear bubbles are being popped. So here are a couple things that you can do. So for development, things you love about the job, which things you love about the job, from flexibility to experience to money to whatever. Pick your one favorite thing. Things you love about your leader. So I always like to say on a personal note, I love Kathy because she's just such a fun person. She loves to give back. She's super involved with charity work, and mention things like that because it makes your manager more personable to people, so that people aren't so scared to talk to them, and they're not scared of even learning from them. So things you love about the people you work with, upcoming opportunities you're excited about, like branching, experience for the summer. So I love to say a feel-good story sometimes, talk about conferences, friendships, personal growth, experience, positive things that your parents, friends, or other people noticed in you, advancement through management, opportunity to gain great resume experience, management skills, people skills, flexibility through school. And of course, you want to make sure that you know the people that are in your room. If I have a mostly sharp training class. Let's say with a ton of kids that like they don't necessarily need money. You know, for me, when I first started, I didn't need money, but all I wanted was money to go on my mission trip, and I didn't know all the experience that I could have gained from it. But there's some kids that come and work for Cutco, yes or no, that don't need money. Yeah, right. Like they mainly go for the experience. So it's not really going to help them in any way if I like stand there and talk about how much I love the money of the job, right? They're like not really attracted to that. Versus if I talk about all the experience I've had as a manager and advancing in the company, that's something that's going to get them fired up to sell. This past week in our training class, we had this kid named John Austin that I interviewed that was super fired up about the experience factor in Cutco. And when Kathy was walking him through his schedule, having a 10K faster, he's like, I didn't even know that you could like really make money here. That's really cool, but I was just really excited about the experience, you know? So promote the things that you think the people in the room need. Sales tips. You can talk about reading, cutting, and smiling. That's what I always say. And calling in. No, pages 8, 9, and 16 now. It's not 15 anymore. Again, clearing your first weekend. What would you have done differently in your fast start? See your best people first. Follow the manual. It works. People bought because of Cutco, not because of it being you. A lot of people's fears when they come in is that, oh, they're not going to buy because I'm not good at selling. It's like, if you really think about it, do new reps sell because they're good at selling Cutco? They're awful at selling Cutco. How many of you have done a skills check for like somebody that just sold 10K in their fast start? They're awful. They suck at it. Like they're like never good. And if they are good at it and they sound good doing it, they don't have it memorized, right? Or they can't close on larger sets, or they can't do this, they can't do that. So I always encourage people, and I tell them, nobody's gonna buy because it's you and your skills. You're gonna buy because Cutco's awesome. Like I tell people all the time, I sucked when I first started. I was awful at the job. Like I was really, really bad. And so I went to advanced training on Monday with Kathy. I didn't hit my first promotion until Monday night. You know, my fast start was $5,000. You know, I wasn't good at selling Cutco when I first started. What did I do? I just read stuff, cut stuff, and then like I called my manager and he gave me more stuff, you know? So that's what I did to be successful. And I tell my training class that all the time. And Kathy always tells them like, yeah, Marielou was shy. She used to like shake and be nervous to talk in front of people. And, you know, to sell Cutco was like a huge like thing for her because, you know, it helped her, you know, with her confidence or whatever. But imagine, you know, somebody super shy doing this job. Like it's clearly not their skills that make them great. Cutco is what makes them great. So fun, just show. So I always tell people that, you know, the job is actually fun because you get paid to show it, not to sell the product. So don't try and sell things. Don't think you have to convince people. Don't think you have to manipulate people. Just have a lot of fun and show the product. Have a lot of fun and show the product. And then you always want to have some sort of recruiting plug as well. Like I love working with my friends. Dude, just wait until you hear about the contest tomorrow. Or I always say things like, Kat, do they know about the cruise? The cruise is going to be awesome. And she's like, don't tell them, you know? And like sometimes we do that. It's kind of planned. But other times it's like just like fun. And I love to say things like that in training. Like, oh my gosh, did you tell them about the cruise? And she's like, nope, they're going to find out tomorrow. So it kind of helps build that anticipation towards the contest, which will generate a lot more PR names at the end of training. So what we're going to do now is just turn to the person next to you, and we're going to, and Olivia, you can play some music, is we're going to role play the first part where it says when the applicant walks in, and then I want you to come up with your pop-in, okay? And then we're going to have a couple people do their pop-in for us, okay? So partner, ask your person the questions that your manager normally asks. Like, what do you love most about the job? It's normally, what do you love most about the job? You know, can you give them some quick tips for the weekend? And what do you love most about Cutco, the actual product, okay? So practice the top part a couple times until you feel like your partner's got it down, and then let's go ahead and come up with your pop-in. Ready, set, go.